You're listening to the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set out to bring you news, interesting topics, and interviews with people mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 250. I'm your host, András, and joining me for the show are my co-hosts, Annika Harrison, Brian Eggo, Claire Kroulik-Klingenberg, Deborah Hyde, Novella, Jelena Levin, and Pontus. Sziasztok!
Hello.
Okay, well, that was quite a mouthful, just the introductions. So welcome everyone to the first ever live streaming of the ESP, and a warm welcome to our followers as well. And especially if you managed to stick around and you didn't give up on us, that's a big thank you as well. So we've got our 250th episode, which is quite a lot. I mean, here's Jay from the Skeptics Guide to the Universe. Well, to you it probably doesn't look much. But when we started this 5 years ago, because on the 18th of November marked the 5th anniversary of our first ever episode airing back in 2015. So since then, we've conducted more than 100 interviews with people, and we've covered a lot of news from all over the European continent, and we're very proud of that. And we interviewed you all on the show, but why we asked you back today to do this special episode with us is that you have all been guest hosts as well at some point in the 5-year history of the ESP. So welcome back, everyone. And we've muted our microphones, so this is going to be quite nicely an interactive game. But what we've asked of everyone who joins us today is that you bring a story. The original idea was that you bring a story that has something to do with European skepticism or the ESP itself, but we've loosened the rules a little bit. So any kind of interesting story that you want to share with the world, or at least Europeans, please do so. And unfortunately, Jelena is very busy today, so that means she will need to leave us at some point. So I'd like to invite you to start with that, and at some point we will have a trivia quiz, Europe-themed trivia quiz, thanks to Annika, who's prepared the whole thing. So you will be the one who cannot play, but you told us not too long ago that you really love doing the trivia quizzes when you are not the one playing. So yeah, we are happy to play along, and looking forward to that. And we are going to do 2 quiz rounds, and in between we're going to have the stories. So this is the outline for today's show. And again, welcome everyone, and Jelena, it's been a while.
Let me just find the mute button. Yay, I found it. Okay. It has been a while. Thank you so much, guys, for inviting me over. And, I can't believe it's been 5 years, really. Time flies when you have fun. Isn't that what they say? Some things actually never change. For example, I spend quite a lot of my time on recording of the podcast, opening documents and websites. And guess what? I'm still doing it right now. So I'm going to just open something that I prepared for today that I wanted to talk about. So when I looked back at the 5-year history of the ESP, what struck me the most was the number of great organizations and great people that we met along the way and had a pleasure and privilege interviewing. And I've kind of briefly, I don't want to go through every single person we've interviewed because there were 250 episodes, of which probably half are interviews with some skeptics or an interesting person. So, but I wanted to just give a shout out to a few of the people around Europe so that you can get an idea of how diverse and active skepticism in Europe is. So Michael Marshall from Good Thinking Society in England, of course, Diana Barbosa from Portuguese organization Concept, Professor Edzard Ernst, whose blog I absolutely love, and even though I no longer do the podcast, I go onto his blog and follow his stories, like the latest ones called Acupuncture is More Than Useless for Patients Recovering from Breast Surgery. And he does wonderful blog posts that debunk pseudoscience of any kind. Lubomir Baburov from great organization Ratio in Bulgaria, and me and Pontus were lucky enough to actually participate in one of the events that they put up in Bulgaria one year. Antonio Deonate, who is the CEO of Spanish skeptical organization Spanish Rational Alternatives to Pseudoscience. Marko Kovic from Swiss skeptical organization Skeptica Schweiz. Julia Offer from German skeptic organization GWP. Massimo Polidoro from Italian skeptic organization CICAP. Aysil Arikan, the founder of Turkish educational website Yalan Savar. Natalie Grams, the founder of the Homeopathy International Homeopathy Information Network in Germany. You see, this is where editing would really, really help, but we're doing it live, so I'll keep going. And Ovidiu Cavaciu from Romanian
And I won't
Skeptics.
cut this out.
And this is just a flavor, of different countries and organizations and the kind of the scope of the skeptic activism across Europe, which really is an amazing thing. When András invited me over to do this show, he asked me to think about kind of, for the past 5 years, what kind of things stood out the most or an interesting story or something of that sort. And I wasn't sure what I want to talk about, but actually I remembered at the very beginning, for a while, I was doing the segment True or False, if you guys remember. It was a fun little thing. And I found myself finding a lot of these wacky true or false stories from a place it's a prize that exists called Ig Nobel Prize, and they've got a website, and you can go there and you can see all sorts of interesting research that real scientists do. And their tagline is research that makes people laugh and then think. Well, I wanted to, for the old time's sakes, just mention to you a few winners of Ig Nobel 2020. They do a ceremony every year, and this time around it was online. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to view it online. In fact, when we moved to America, I thought, I always had it at the back of my mind that I want to go and see the live Ig Nobel Prize nomination. And maybe next year when the COVID is under control, I can kind of do that at some point. But so anyway, the prizes are very, very wacky, and they involve scientists from all over the world, including actually Europe. And I will start with one of the prizes that was won in 2020 for medicine, purely European win, between the Netherlands and Belgium scientists. And they got the prize for diagnosing a long unrecognized medical condition, misophonia, the distress at hearing other people make chewing sounds. I've heard about that actually, so it's not that new, but anyway, so that they diagnosed it and did the research, and they got the prize for that. Another interesting prize that was awarded this year was the prize that was shared between Austria, Sweden, Switzerland, Japan, and USA. And it's an acoustics prize. An interesting category, but often they make these categories up and fit to the research that was done that year. And this prize went for inducing a female Chinese alligator, very specific, to bellow in an airtight chamber filled with helium-enriched air. And they wanted to see whether the sound that they make in the helium-enriched air differs from the normal. And it was the whole thing. You can actually, we will link this all in description in our show notes. You can go and read the papers online. It's a legit thing. I mean, who would have thought of that? But there you go, somebody did. Another interesting prize was for physics, and it went to Australia, Ukraine, France, Italy, Germany, UK, and South Africa. So that's quite a collaboration over here. For determining experimentally what happens to the shape of a living earthworm when one vibrates the earthworm at high frequency. I mean, I don't envy that poor earthworm who got vibrated all over the place. And again,
someone has to find that out.
I've vibrated my earthworm a few times.
I know, right?
For experimental reasons.
But I guess I don't want to say favorite, but the one that I had to laugh at the most went for Material Science Prize, and it went to UK and USA, so they shared the prize together. A few scientists took part in this work, and it is a real thing. I swear, you can go and look at the paper again. It's all online. And this prize was given for showing that knives manufactured from frozen human feces do not work well.
Yeah. As if you have to prove it, yes.
I know. So now I had to read more.
Did they tell them when they made these bad knives to cut the shit?
Hey.
Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say it, guy.
But I had to read a bit more about this, because I'm like, what the hell do these scientists do? They're getting paid to do this research. But in any case, apparently there was a well-known account of an old Inuit man who refused to move into a settlement. Over the objections of his family, he made plans to stay on the ice. To stop him, they took away all of his tools. So in the midst of a winter gale, he stepped out of the igloo, defecated, and honed the feces into a frozen blade, which he sharpened with a spray of saliva. With the knife, he killed a dog, using its rib cage as a sled and its hide to harness another dog. He disappeared into the darkness. So that is a tale that apparently was passed on from generation to generation. I have never heard
I think
that
he
tale.
did a much better job than all the scientists that tried to replicate it later.
Well, so this is exactly it, right? The scientists heard of that tale. Where the hell they heard of it? I have no idea. Anyway, they have their own channels, obviously. And then so hang on a second.
You know, scientists are people.
I know, but like I thought they read clever. I don't know what I thought. Obviously my expectations were, not where they should be. But so they've heard that tale and they thought, hang on a second, we can prove or disprove this. And so they recreated this whole experiment with feces and then freezing them and then making the knife and then finding out that it actually doesn't work. And this whole tale was a pile of,
It shouldn't really matter, but were they allowed to use their own? Because using working someone else's poo would be even worse than their own.
Right. And I'm sure it probably is part of
it's
the...
frozen, who cares?
Has less powers than András.
But actually, that's not the only knife story that is in existence. There's a story about this explorer, a Danish explorer, Anderson, who got snowed in, and he couldn't get out of the snowed in thing, and he didn't have any tools, so he just pooped, and then he made his poop into a little knife/spoon thing, and got his way out of the snowed in area. And then he had frostbite on his legs, so he had to crawl on his stomach to the closest center, and he climbed on his stomach through a frozen ice crazy place for miles supposedly, and then he lost a bunch of his toes, and then he fought the Nazis or something. It's
I think more research is needed here.
So what I gathered from what you said is that Edward Snowden fought the Nazis.
With a UFO.
Okay,
No.
so it was a bad attempt at a joke, sorry.
A UFO out of poop, I guess.
Yeah, just that's the only other frozen poop knife story that I know, and so I thought it was relevant.
In the meanwhile, we have fixed the echo.
Right?
We have fixed the echo situation. we found the
Alright,
culprit,
perfect.
and we've taken him behind this place here, and we shot him. So
Right.
Excellent.
Good. Well,
yeah, you
so
did. Yeah.
in any case, I would very much encourage anyone who is interested, and this is just a flavor of what type of research is being done every year, and what the scientists are being paid for. You know, it made me question my career choices. I should have been a science making knife from frozen poop. But in any case, that's one thing that I wanted to bring up today. And just one last thing before I finish. Something from 2019 stood out to me on an Ig Nobel Prize winners list, and it was a medicine prize shared between Italy and Netherlands for collecting evidence that pizza might protect against illness and death if the pizza is made and eaten in Italy. The end. So there you go.
I knew that already. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Right,
financed by the Ministry of Culture and
I think the
Tourism
same goes
of
for
Italy.
Jay's
Pretty sure.
meatballs, I've heard.
That what, you can use them as a weapon?
No, that's... I think they could be a weapon if they got in the wrong hands, yes.
You can use them to get out of snow.
I was thinking when you were telling the story that the guy should have made like a poop sled so he wouldn't have to crawl on his stomach.
Yeah, I mean, like someone already like linked in the Twitch thing. Adam Kuznets linked already to the Wikipedia page of the guy I was talking about. So I did not make it up. It's a whole Wikipedia page.
But then it's right. Yeah.
Excellent. I did not.
Are you saying
I
that
did
if
not
something has a Wikipedia page, it means that it's not
Yeah.
made up at all? You know how many UFO incidents there are
No,
Wikipedia
I'm-
pages for?
Yeah. We have a Wikipedia page, and we are not real. So
And thanks to Adam for that,
yeah,
actually.
especially. Yeah.
The
Well,
very
let me-
guy who commented that.
Let me ask you guys a question. So you 250 episodes, 5 years. That turns into
That's
about how many a year is that?
It's once a week, roughly.
Yeah, I've been thinking
Right.
about that too. So how does it add up?
The first 3 months.
Doesn't add
The
up,
first
really.
3 months we only did every other week. That's how we sort
Yes.
of got.
Did we?
Yeah,
Oh
that's right,
yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
that's
and
not
I was
uncommon.
the idiot who came up with the idea of doing one every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. And
So
you guys hated me for that. Yeah, and quite rightly so.
Did you guys start with a mission statement? Did you know, okay, we're doing this podcast specifically for X, Y, and Z, or did you just want to talk about skepticism?
Yes, we did
To both.
have a mission. The whole idea came up at the European Skeptics Congress, and we realized that we got into a very nice conversation with Pontus and several of them actually, and we were chatting about how little we know about what's going on in other countries outside of the English-speaking world.
Mhm.
And we wanted to fix that. We wanted to give an opportunity to all the different skeptical movements of the different regional or different countries, regional or local organizations to introduce themselves, to let everyone know what they were up to, and this was what we wanted to do. So we didn't determine who the actual audience might be,
Mhm.
but we wanted to give an opportunity to all skeptics across Europe to use this as a kind
But
of
it was other skeptics in
And,
Europe, really. At least in my head, that was the audience, and still is to a large extent.
Well, I think there was
Yeah.
a slight limiting factor is language, because we had to use English as being the one that the language used
Yeah.
the most across Europe. So it is a little bit limiting. But we had people from different countries, like some of them I mentioned, who were able to kind of introduce their organization and give it a little bit more of a visibility. Get people on board.
I would say like this, put
I-
Europe on the skeptical map, because a lot of it was very American-centric. Of course, we have Richard Saunders in Australia, but it's still
Australia,
very
And if not American, then it's UK or Australia.
Yeah, right. So,
outside
but
of that,
but who knows
there
what's
was
going on
not
in
much.
Slovakia? Who knows what's going on in Spain, Italy, Czechia, Sweden. So
do you guys feel like over the past 5 years that you've gotten to where you want the podcast to be? Is that information coming in?
Well, they've won
Yes and no.
the question: are we happy? Do you think we're doing the best job you can do? No, we can always improve, but I think we've come a long way. I hope that we are much better at it now than we were in the beginning, of course. But I still think we can improve.
Well, I mean, you have to be humble about where you've gotten to. Everybody needs to, because you could always do better. You can always do more and have farther reach. But I mean, my sense is that you guys have done a good job, a very good job. You have a wide variety of interviews and topics. I know how much work it takes. I mean, I know how every stage of podcast making and how difficult it is. And it is a ton of work. And when you're doing it every week, but you stuck with it. And that's why we're here. And that's what's awesome is, you guys made 250 episodes. And these aren't just light episodes. You guys do research and you're finding people to interview. It's meaningful. It's not just people talking.
You know what we really love, and when we feel really accomplished after an interview, is when people come back to let us know that they've heard of someone from the show for the first time, and how awesome the work that those people are doing, and how great it is that we give them a platform. And this is what we set out to do. And that's quite good. And thanks Deborah for mentioning that we've got a prize for that as well, for our work. Yeah. So do you guys remember Jelena and Pontus?
Oh yeah.
How funny it felt? Like, we were absolutely not prepared for actually winning the Occams.
Our speech was appalling. It's like,
we didn't prepare anything.
Thanks. That was really nice. Thanks. See ya.
I remember saying I wanted another bottle of wine to the presenter. That wasn't very professional.
That's important.
It was important. I meant it, but.
So who gets to have where is the award? Did you guys get a physical object for winning that?
I think András sold it, didn't he?
Oh, no surprise. He's got it close by.
It's under his pillow.
It's in his toilet. It's in his toilet.
Well, the thing is, András was the guy who initiated the podcast, and it was only fair to give it to András. I don't know if there was ever an agreement to go, okay, it's a year in András's house, a year in Pontus's, and a year in mine. I don't think that was the thing.
It would have been great if there was a really prolonged custody battle or something.
Right. Yeah.
Or like a sister.
I'm surprised to see that the lighting is still.
Well, it's high quality stuff, isn't it, Deborah? Yeah.
It is high quality stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I was when you guys started the podcast, I was really happy for basically the same reason that you said, because there isn't like a congress of skeptics, and we know exactly what's going on all over the world and who's doing what and what problems are skeptics having in each country. And so I really agreed with your premise, and I think you guys have done a very good job. And I talk to people who listen, I come across people all the time that listen to your podcast, which is very good.
Great. Thank you.
But I am very interested in the idea of having a world of skeptics that are representative. We have skeptics from all over the world, and maybe there would be a benefit to having like some formal discussions and align ourselves. Yeah. I know that in the past, efforts like this typically don't work. But I think the people that I would be interested in including would be people that have stuck it out and been doing this for a long time, because I think that's part of the problem. You have to be able to continue to do this and put in all that work that basically doesn't pay you back. That means that you care. And if anything, just to hear what people are working on, like, it's funny, I find out a lot about what happens in Australia by reading the news and Facebook. It's not like Richard and I are talking every week and he's like, so this is what we're working, you know what I mean? It just doesn't come through people, it comes through reading. And I would rather talk. I would rather talk to people and get their emotional input as well, not just, what happened. I want to know, what's it like? What bad guys are you fighting, and how are you doing it? And what's it feel like?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting also that the different kinds of madness sometimes are restricted to language groups, So the anti-vax stuff was really popular in English because of Andrew Wakefield and because of all of the communication networks.
Yep.
And other languages would have their own difficulties that they were dealing with. And we might not know about that unless we exchanged information.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, India as an example, the stories that I get out of India when they infrequently come my way, they're amazing. Horrifically amazing. Like just the amount of weird things that are going on. And I would love to talk to Sanal. You guys know who Sanal is?
Yeah.
Every time we talk to him, he comes out with another story, and you're like, my hair gets blown back. It's so amazing. So I would love to have more frequent discussions about what they're doing, what's happening. Maybe there's some type of support that we could give some way. Or,
are you talking about regular meetings, like once a month or something like that?
I would think once every few months, like once a quarter to start, just to check in and see what's up. I don't want to pretend that we're gonna with a meeting that's happening four or six times a year, say it's not going to change the world, but I think it would give us some perspective. And also we could dip into each other's bag of tricks. What are you doing? How's it working? What's effective? What's not? And also share, you guys interviewed 100 people. That's a great list of people. You have contacts with 100 people. They could be great guests at conferences and whatnot. There's a lot to it that we could talk about. And the reason why I say this, András, is because you were talking about like the Star Trek, one government the world idea.
Yeah.
And I was really thinking about it when I got your email, and I was really letting that run through the machine in my head, and I'm like, is that achievable is humanity actually capable of achieving that? Could we have a single government where humanity is at the absolute pinnacle of what the government is about, is taking care of humanity? That would be amazing. I just don't know if we're capable.
I don't know. Let's start with a federation of podcasts, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, and then we'll take it to the planets. Okay.
Good call.
Great.
Yeah, and let's just make sure first that it's whatever is being built up of that sort, that it is based on a democratic system, because otherwise we can end up with people like your valued president.
Or your president.
Or my prime minister, But,
it is really horrifying in the United States. Like it's unbelievable just how polarized the country is. It's almost 50-50. It really isn't. People say, Biden won by 6 million votes, and I'm like, that's it.
That's amazing.
We have an insane narcissist running an incredibly democratic country, and who is right now trying to, in one way or another, form a coup to take over the government, and like only 6 million people got out of bed that day to vote. I don't get it. I really don't understand how they can be fooled so easily. He's not even charismatic, which that's the other thing. If he was super charismatic, if he was like George Clooney charismatic level, I'd be like, all right, well, at least he's got the charisma backing him up. But he just doesn't have anything that I get. I don't buy into it at all.
I think the scariest about him was not so much that he got in for 4 years, because, he's a TV star and he had a lot of money to throw at it. The thing that scared me most was that he could start disassembling the democratic institutions.
Yeah.
Because the institutions matter. The people don't. The people die. But, just the way that you could see if he had had another term, he would have got to the fundamental machinery of how U.S. democracy runs. That is scary.
It turned out.
I totally.
It turned out that he discovered, or I don't know. I don't want to give him too much credit. Maybe he just stumbled on it out of pure stupidity. But what he realized was that the system is not built just on rules and laws and constitution, but also on a lot of norms. And if you break the norms, you can do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
It
turns out that the U.S. government doesn't have teeth against itself. There, so many times and places during the last 4 years, I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, that person should get there should be a lawsuit because that senator did this or whatever, and it's not happening. So what aligns people's motivation with doing what is right? Because I truly believe that most of the people that support Trump in the government, like most of them, the big players like the senators, were out and out against him, right? I mean, they were literally, a year before he got elected, they were cussing him out and saying this guy is a train wreck, and now they're backing him. I mean, it's really disgusting.
You are right, but I don't think it's a specifically American thing. It's not that. I think it's happening all over the world currently. Yeah. And there are many, many reasons for that. And we as skeptics need to understand the reasons behind all that. And I think in the chat room, Richard Saunders, whom we've mentioned already, suggests a very good thing. UFSP, United Federation of Skeptical Podcasts. I think that could be...
I like that.
That could be something.
I like that. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Shall we listen to someone else's really good and hopefully inspirational or positive or something? I don't mind. Brian, just hit us with something that elevates the mood here.
No pressure.
I think you're coming to it.
Yeah,
you're coming to the wrong person for that,
what do you mean? What do you mean, András?
No
What do you mean, András? Did my story about the frozen feces didn't elevate the mood?
Well,
No. But we got all depressed about this. This.
Oh,
shit going
after
on.
that.
Well, no, she talked about shit and I talked about
right.
shit. So now
Fair.
we're gonna move on to something else.
Okay, so for my piece, I thought I'd go down a little bit of memory lane for y'all. So if you think back to 5 years when the ESP first came out, it was actually round about the same time that I fully took power of Glasgow Skeptics. That one-person autocracy has been running for just over 5 years now. And the very, very final event that I hosted that had been organised by my predecessor was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Mike Galsworthy. And it was part of an event we'd been asked to take part in at Glasgow Science Centre for a European Researchers' Night. And Dr. Galsworthy was speaking about the potential impact on British science of Brexit. So, for anybody who's been in a coma for the past 5 years, spoiler alert, didn't go well. So Jay, you guys weren't the only country that had a slightly disappointing election result in 2016. It didn't go too well for us either. But I thought I'd just jump back into their website and take a look at their sort of little mantra or their sort of things you should know about science in EU and the potential impact it was going to have on British science. So let me take you through these 5 things you should know. Number 1, the EU leads the world in science output. It produces over a third of the world's scientific output now, 34%, even more than the US. Sorry, Jay, we've overtaken you in that respect. Number 2, the EU powers European and global science networking. So the EU puts 8% of its budget into a multinational science programme called Horizon 2020. And UK researchers can pick and mix partners from right across Europe, putting together multinational dream teams. Freedom of movement and a common legislative framework help make cross-border collaboration much easier. Number 3, just as my wife comes in for a drink, international collaborations have more impact. Networking is crucial to being a world-leading science nation. International scientific papers have much more impact than domestic-only research, about 40% more, apparently. Number 4, UK science is growing thanks to the EU vision. The EU has been shifting the focus of its budget from agriculture to research, innovation and growth, with the science budget tripling over the last decade. EU funds now make up 17% of the total science research grants in UK higher education institutes. Number 5, there's no extra money for science on Brexit. Being a net contributor to the EU budget doesn't mean we profit by leaving. There are wider impacts of pulling the plug, with a likely economic drop far bigger than our net contribution. This means less money, not more, available for UK science if we leave. So that was, and I must say, back in 2015 when I met Mike and he went through that talk in front of the audience at the Glasgow Science Centre, it was kind of an existential risk. Like, we didn't necessarily think it was going to happen. And hopefully Deborah's going to be nodding a little bit back then. Just think back to 2015. Do you remember how innocent we were? And I remember similarly talking to some folks from America pre the November election as well. So I'm happy to see, Jay, that your country's made, I think, the right decision this time round, 4 years later on. Unfortunately,
for us to do that.
Yeah, it's a bit late for the UK to do that, so I'm not sure there's a way back for us. Maybe there might be a way back for Scotland separately. We shall see. Only time's going to tell.
Yeah, you're in a
that.
better situation that way than Deborah is, because she's stuck with England.
I think all of this is, we'll be back in 10 years. It's just not on such good terms.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's likely.
We'll see.
And
by that time, we might be out.
Yeah.
If Scotland makes it back in and you don't, Deborah, you can come up and stay for a while, okay? We'll give you a little feeding bag out in the summer house or something, okay?
But I wanted to just quickly mention, because it's interesting, Brian, you brought up Brexit. What's Brexit again? Is that the kind of sort of breakfast? No. Anyway, so we were talking with Brad not long ago about Brexit, because we no longer live in Europe, but I still care about England. And he said, well, that's interesting, because the people were also asked a long time before Brexit about the name of the boat that they wanted to name. And so the boat name came out, I don't know if you know of that story, Boaty McBoatface. And so the Boaty McBoatface never really materialized, because they turned around and said, no, this is a stupid name. You don't know anything. We're not going to count this vote. And yet when it came to Brexit, everybody got super serious. I mean, priorities, people. Priorities, right?
Brexit McBrexit face. That's what happened, yeah.
In all fairness,
Exactly.
I think the little submarine got the boat face as a name for the big ship, which is called named after Sir Richard Attenborough, David Attenborough. Sorry, Richard was the other one. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it did make it the name.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry to bring the mood down. Maybe the next person's got a happier story.
And can I? Yeah, let's give Deborah a try.
Oh, right. The next person having a happier story. Yeah, well, mine's about COVID.
Oh, good.
That sounds very funny and happy.
Yeah, sorry, folks.
What a treat for the listeners.
I was just interested because I was looking at a BBC documentary earlier this weekend, and you might be able to get it if you can get the BBC in your country or on one of your VOD platforms. It was called Lockdown Following the Science, ? And it addressed the question of whether or not the science had been followed in the UK. And it started with many politicians quoting their intention to use the science. At all stages, we have been guided by the science, said Boris Johnson. But I think that might have led to a rather unnuanced idea of what actually science is. Just to recoup how this happened in the UK, basically more than 50,000 people in Britain have died because of COVID, and that's one of the worst in Europe. I don't know whether or not that's an absolute figure or per capita, but we haven't done well, and it's perhaps worse than that, considering that we were on the end of a curve. We had the other examples to look at first in Italy and Spain. So we really didn't do so well. There are various advisory bodies that do feed into government policy, and they have very good scientific credentials. There are sort of impromptu bodies that come together at crisis times. There are ones that are constantly feeding into the government. There's one called NervTag, which is the new and emerging respiratory virus threats advisory group. They report to the chief medical officer, who reports to the government. The problem with that was that they produce a risk for each day. As one of the scientists there said, it's like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. Your risk in the next few seconds is very low indeed, but you are going to die, and quite soon. So it's coming to the understanding of exactly what the nerve tag hazard figure meant. There's another one, the SPIM. They generate a consensus model from at least 3 authorities, usually more. And they are the Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Modelling. They report to SAGE, who reports to the government. But that's a matter of having really good data. And what emerged through this was that most people didn't have good data. In some cases, they were using Wikipedia. Or that there was a significant lag in the data and they didn't realize it. So they were modeling for cases that were already, say, 7 days or 10 days out of date. There was another thing called the FF100, the first few 100, the first data set you get within a locale of people who are ill, where they've come from, how quickly their disease progresses, that sort of thing. There was an epidemiologist who had just come back from the People's Republic of Congo, where he had been helping with an Ebola outbreak there. And he said that the kind of information that we were getting in the UK was worse than he was getting in the Congo. So I think obviously in a situation like this, it's unprecedented. People plan for it. Their plans aren't going to be perfect. But the thing that worries me, I suppose, is as skeptics, we know that science isn't a god, it isn't one thing, it doesn't embody the truth, it's actually a human endeavour, and that it depends on the data that you put in as to what you get out. It informs, but it doesn't dictate. Sometimes there are good policy reasons not to follow the science. For example, do you completely shut your hospitals down and miss early cancer cases? How does that work out in terms of ultimately the number of deaths that are going to occur in the long run? What I worry is that the political discourse will be very framed around scientific expertise, and there will be the possibility for scapegoating, because ultimately, when this happens again, and it will, because we are breaking into sort of virgin ecosystems all the time, we're more intensively farming, so we'll have more of these types of pandemics. We need more science, not less. Just because some of the data modelling didn't work last time, it doesn't mean that we should all take homeopathy for the next whatever it is that comes out. I think really this documentary brought up 3 things for me. The first thing is my favourite phrase, you only get answers to the questions you ask. So you'd better make sure that your questions are useful and relevant. There was a huge sporting event, several of them in the UK actually, but one in particular that I was thinking of was when Madrid and Liverpool played a game. There were 100,000 people in an arena, and people were evaluating whether it would be safer for that to be cancelled or whether it would be safer for it to go on. One of the things that paid into that was, well, if people are outside, then at least they're in the air and aerosol transmission isn't likely to be as high. But do you really think there would have been 100,000 people packed tightly into pubs as an alternative to that? So it's the way you frame your questions. People had to get there. The second thing was the modelers may be very, very good at their maths, but they can only work with the information you give them. Do the modelers know about the details of the systems they're being asked to model? For example, it was obvious very early on that age-related issues were very important with COVID. So in the UK, I think in care homes, there was a huge, a number of people died that by any other standard would be regarded as carnage. There were 400,000 old people in homes, of whom 20,000 died. Now, old people are mostly far more in contact with carers and professional people than people who are younger, because they need more assistance. And it turns out this system in the UK employs an awful lot of agency workers. So the modelers were working with the idea of these care homes which could be isolated. In actual fact, they weren't isolated at all. the third thing for me are the tests that we're applying to try and find the truth. Are they relevant to the scenarios that we're talking about? So that, again, that feeds into the care homes and the agency staff issue. There was a representative from the care home industry who said that the first thing that he did was went to the government and lobbied for testing. And the testing said the government said that the advice was that testing didn't actually help. But of course, it may have been correct in one specific case. It may have answered one question, but it wasn't in this particular case. It would have helped enormously if the agency staff could have been tested. So science isn't all just about doing one experiment and getting a figure. It's so much more complicated than that. It's a philosophical endeavor which involves asking the right questions, and hopefully for the next time we will learn to ask better questions, because there will always be a load of woo merchants out there who will just use this as a scapegoating exercise.
Which you are a bit of an expert in.
I am.
You've covered it a couple of times from medieval perspective as well. Like you dug up a couple of medieval stories about things like that. So you've even covered that on the ESP. You gave us a bit of a history of pandemic situations and how people handled it and how scapegoating kicked in.
Skeptic recently for it, and it's kind of. To be honest, the interesting stuff happens in the years to come.
Well, all right.
Yeah, because it's been a bit dull here lately.
Yeah, not so much in our case because of the death toll, which has not been as high as many other pandemics, but I think the economic
like in the US,
are going to be incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, someone has to bring the mood up. I think we'll ask Annika to do that with a quiz, but unfortunately, Jelena and Jay have to leave. It looks. Guys, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure.
My pleasure, and congratulations, guys. Keep going.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot.
Thank you so much for having me again, guys. All right.
Anytime.
Take
Be
care.
good, guys. Have fun
Anytime.
today.
Laters.
Yeah, we will. Take care.
Okay, Annika, bring the mood up for us,
Annika,
unless it's
are
a quiz
you
about...
ready to bring the mood up?
Of course, of course.
Oh, yeah. Make us feel stupid.
Okay, can you all see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Very good. Okay, so welcome to the awesome quiz of Europe, skepticism, and everything else, only available at TheESP. And I'll give you a test question first.
Mm-hmm.
So, where in Europe is the chair of Eggo located? A, in Brussels, Belgium, B, in Rostorf, Germany, or C, at Claire Kroulik-Klingenberg's house? What would you say?
Should we just say it out what we're guessing, or?
Yeah, you can just say it out.
Are we talking about a person or an actual chair? Because I've seen an actual chair in Rostov.
You've seen a chair there?
In Martin Mahner's office, and I could imagine that it belongs to Eggo, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm with you, actually. I think it's Rostorf. Unless it's something that Figaro has in Claire's dog.
Yeah, so the first chair was actually in Brussels, but now currently it is in Rostorf. But I'm trying to get that chair from Rostorf to my house, so
all of them.
possibly be true.
So that is about to become the chair's chair.
Yeah.
Good.
So good thing that was only a chair, the test question. So let's start with the actual quiz, I would say. So,
Okay, good.
round one, question one. In Croatian folklore, a karsnik or karsnika is typically hunting what? Giants, disobedient children, or vampires?
I think this is something that Deborah must know.
How deep?
This is
gotta know that.
This is my whole credibility.
Right.
My answer
I'm
is
going
what
to say
Deborah knows.
disobedient children.
Okay, I'll lock that in.
I am also going to say disobedient children. Definitely not, because Deborah just said that.
I think that's not specific for Croatia though. Hunting disobedient children is something you do everywhere. So I'm gonna go with giants just to be different.
So we have both genders here, right? Kresnik is the male and the Kresnica will be the female. So since it's folklore, then for
someone speaks a Slavic language here.
I'm going to go with disobedient children as well.
Okay.
Me too, because it sounds really, really scary.
You don't really have to hunt for them. You just look at them and they start, don't you? Disobedient children are everywhere.
Yeah.
I've got one right here.
Where else?
So Pontus and
András.
Giants.
No,
András already
giants.
said.
Giants. Just
Giants,
because I
okay.
want to be different.
Shall I tell you the solutions right after every question or at the end?
Yes, please. Otherwise, we'll die.
Okay.
Just not knowing.
Then I'll tell you what it is, and it is vampires.
Is it?
Oh.
Yes.
All right, perhaps
Vampires.
Okay.
I'll stick that on the list.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. That here's a research topic for you.
Yeah, what's your source, by the way?
That was actually Wikipedia. Shout out to Susan Gerbic.
Okay.
Yay!
All right, I'll look at the source.
More of those coming later, Susan.
Okay, yes. Second question. Which of the following ingredients is not part of a homeopathic remedy? A, the color blue, B, 5G, or C, the Berlin Wall?
Didn't answer D, all of the above. Or actually, all of them are a homeopathic remedy, so the other way around.
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Everything, I'm sure you can get it. And if you can't get it, I have a neighbor next door who sells homeopathy. I'm sure she can fix that up for you.
We can do it ourselves.
I'm pretty sure the answer is B. I think I've heard Marsh talking about homeopathic blue and homeopathic Berlin Wall before.
The Berlin Wall is definitely there.
Yeah.
It exists. I do have that.
What was it, Claire?
No, they don't have the 5G homeopathy yet. I think next month or something we should expect that coming out.
We should send some
seriously, we can make it at home.
What does the homeopathic remedy of the Berlin Wall do? Protect you against walls? I mean...
It protects you against the David Hasselhoff concert.
No,
that's worth it.
it protects you, like it brings people closer.
Claustrophobia?
I think it was claustrophobia. I think it was against claustrophobia.
No, I thought it was because the Berlin Wall divided. So then taking homeopathy from the Berlin Wall actually brings people closer. Wasn't that the case?
No, but I've heard that it's used for.
I think it works equally well against both of those.
For both, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I almost said, oh, that's good logic there, Claire. And it's not really good logic, but it's good what a homeopath would think logic is. So yeah. Good call.
Susan writes, she has seen the Berlin Wall homeopathy one. So, did it work, Susan?
Oh, don't cheat with the chat. That's not fair.
No, you're getting help from...
Yeah, hey.
Susan, don't help.
Everyone else does. Everyone can see the chat.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, but not all of us are looking at it.
None of us are cheating.
Yeah, I'm trying to run the show here, so I'm looking everywhere.
Annika, I think András should be deducted points.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Andy wouldn't have stood for this.
Okay, other picks from you guys. So, Brian and Claire said 5G.
Well, if there's something, it's that one. But I think that there's a homeopathic thing with 5G as well. And if not, there will be one tomorrow because they've just missed it.
I vote A, just for good measure, because I'm pretty sure it's 5G, but I want to be fair.
And Deborah, what do you pick?
And lose points.
5G, yeah, 5G.
5G. Okay. And you're absolutely right, it's 5G. Yet. I particularly found the color blue very nice, I have to say, because they're not talking about food dye here or anything. Talking about the actual...
And moonlight? There is one
Yes.
of moonlight. It's made out of moonlight.
Well, we also talked about British sunlight. Do you remember? It's also a homeopathic
Oh yeah,
remedy.
yes.
But that is homeopathic in
Actually-
itself because it doesn't really exist.
Gabor Hashko, who up until Friday was the president of the Hungarian Skeptics when I took over.
Oh,
He
congratulations!
has quite a thank you very much.
Congrats.
So he has quite an extensive piece of a collection of different homeopathic products. But as Susan writes on the chat window, where we saw that and where she saw that Berlin Wall homeopathy one was in the GWP office. So it's in Rostorf, right?
Yeah. Or I think
because
after
we
that we
visited
also went to the Hahnemann Museum, right? So it could also have been there.
Hahnemann Museum. Oh, very nice. All right, so
Okay, next question. The 9 hikers who died in the Dyatlov Pass incident were from which institute?
This is hardcore.
This is hard, yes. So A, the Ural Polytechnical Institute, B, the Ural State Law Academy, or C, the Ural Federal University.
Wow.
A.
So Claire says A.
Why so quick there, Claire? Is this something I should know? I think I talked about this on the show.
For some reason, I feel that it was this one, but I don't know yet.
You trust your feelings. Okay, good.
There's a good episode of the Skeptoid podcast about the Dyatlov Pass incident, and I heard it spoken about somewhere else as well.
TheESP, I think.
Vaguely rings a bell. No, I didn't.
Did you cover it at some point? No, of course not. Why would you?
I think I talked about this. I can't remember why, but I'll say B just to say something. I don't know.
You talked about you didn't remember why. Now you don't even remember the correct answer.
No, that's me. I forget. I mean, I just read things. I don't understand them.
According to some, the Dyatlov Pass Wikipedia page is one of the most popular ones.
Actually, I'm changing my answer to C just to mess with the others.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that if they were from the Polytechnical Institute, they would have had more hands-on sort of useful skills to bring to the situation. So,
You think?
Yeah, Polytechnic students. Yeah, they would have learned. They would know how to saw things and.
So what would you pick?
University, Federal University.
Okay. And András?
I pick A.
Okay. Did everybody pick? Yeah, I think so. Okay, then I'll tell you the answer, and it's A, the Ural Polytechnical Institute.
Come on.
My feelings were right. Oh.
I'm going with Claire in the future. I'm going to, whatever she picks, I'll do that.
Just trust
So
your instinct.
you're gonna GWC?
Exactly, yeah.
They call it,
Right.
the SGP.
Okay, next question. A piece of writing by a part of the well-known skeptical family called Huxley inspired an American band name. Which band am I talking about? A, Deep Purple, B, The Doors, or C, Insane Clown Posse?
Clearly, the only European question I know the answer to, the dates, is war. I haven't got a clue about any Insane Clown Posse.
American band name Huxley.
Is that how you spell posse with a Y?
Can I? Yeah.
In this instance, yes.
Is it really? Okay.
Weren't they the ones who sang about
confused about magnets?
Confused about magnets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I will.
Fucking magnets. How do they work?
How do they work? Yeah. So I'm going to rule out the Insane Clown Posse because of that, and I'm going to go for the Doors.
Me too. I'm going with the Doors.
I'm going with C, and I say because Huxley it sounds like it could have been I don't know.
I think we need reinforcements. I may have called a friend to join us. You'll see in a few seconds, maybe.
Someone David Glass, David Glass, Glass.
David Glass,
sorry.
yeah.
I don't know. He says that it should be spelled Posse.
Okay.
Okay. So I was right then. Excellent. I thought it was Posse was an E, right?
Oh, Brian's phoned a friend.
Yeah, the answer's definitely the door. We should just push the red
Hello
button,
there.
exactly.
Okay, so who still needs to pick?
I
Claire,
haven't.
I think.
Yeah. I really don't know, like the Doors is such a like a basic random name that why would it like be an inspired thing from someone's writing? So I'm gonna go with C because that just sounds.
No, I think that was
Okay.
deep. I think deep, not Deep Purple. I think the Doors were pretty philosophical. I think that's sort of a door to another universe or something like that. So I'm going with B.
Okay, I think Deborah, you still need to pick an answer.
Oh no, I chose Insane Clown Posse because I just
Because it wasn't spelled right.
I love
Yeah.
that work.
Okay, and the right answer here was the Doors.
Yes.
Oh,
Eggman is on fire tonight.
Yeah.
That's what you get for drinking on a Sunday night, folks. Give it a try.
I will.
Yeah, it was Aldous Huxley who wrote The Doors of Perception, and Jim Morrison got inspired by that.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
yeah.
And drugs.
How many questions have we got on one round? 5?
This one, like the last one, and then the round is done.
Good.
Okay, so last question of this round,
Good.
and that is, oops,
That
sorry.
is whoops.
The Malleus Maleficarum, the religious text that
Someone just
underpins...
joined us. Sorry.
Hey!
Hi,
Richard,
Richard.
what a
Just
surprise!
joined us, Richard Saunders.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello.
I think I'm in the wrong podcast. This is the Skeptic Zone anniversary podcast.
Oh,
isn't it?
really? Yeah, welcome. You're just in time for the
Thank
last question there.
Yeah, just in time for the last question of the first round.
Big congratulations, by the way. I know how hard it is to keep churning out a podcast week after week. After week.
How do you know that, Richard?
Because I listen to the ESP.
Oh!
Do we complain about that much?
Yes. No, it's all right. Carry on.
Okay, so the Malleus Maleficarum, which is, as we all know, the religious text that underpinned the Spanish Inquisition, was originally published in which European country? A, Germany, B, Italy, or C, France?
This would be very embarrassing if I didn't get this, wouldn't it? I'm trying to look for my copy of it because it's just behind me somewhere. Well, the two inquisitors
Do you
who
think?
were Kramer and Sprenger. So I'm going to get Germany, and Germany was the place of the work.
Yeah. I'm going Germany too.
So
Which
Brian
one?
and Deborah go Germany?
I'll go Germany too, because that sounds good to me.
I think so too. I'm surprised that Spain wasn't one of the all options, but Germany it is.
Okay.
I say Italy.
Italy?
Spain was a very strange kind of late witch outbreak, which was in effect it was anti-Semitism. It was catching a load of Jewish converts a generation later. So it was a very clear kind of an inquisition compared to the rest of Europe.
And Claire, what do you feel? What do your feelings say?
No, I already answered it right at the beginning. That it was Germany.
Okay. And the right answer is, of course, Germany.
Very
Of
good.
course.
Well, of course. Hello. Okay, so
Very good.
that was round one. I'll stop the screen.
I don't know
now.
if you know what you signed up for, Richard, but we were going to go on for a couple of hours more. But
That's all right. It's a cold. Well, it's not cold, but it's a wet, rainy day here in Sydney. So what else? Am I
yeah,
gonna do,
exactly.
right?
Not shave, I guess.
Yeah, you're there. Oops. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Again. Yeah.
So I'll just count. I'll just count the points, and so maybe if somebody else wants to start with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Richard.
Have you prepared something?
No, I have not prepared anything at all. But I will tell you one thing that I've been having great success with lately on my own podcast, the Skeptics Zone podcast. And this came about because and you probably can sympathize with me, one day, some weeks ago, a couple of months ago, I had a big gap in the show I had to fill. And I thought, what am I going to do? I've got this big gap. And then I went to the online resource of digitized newspapers in Australia, going back to almost to the start of the country, almost 200 years. And I've put in skeptical words and phrases like ESP, Ouija board,
ESP
UFOs.
must have gotten a lot of hits on ESP, I think.
Oh, that's right. And I've found a wealth of stuff going back into the early part of last century, even before then, on all the topics, the good old classic topics we love to talk about. And I've just discovered, which I'll put on my own show next week, that people were offering money and skeptical of the claims of water divining and water dowsing in 1945 and 1912.
Wow.
So I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was James Randi coming here in 1980 who started that whole thing about offering money and prizes and being skeptical about water divining, but it goes back for decades and decades and decades. So that's been a really interesting thing, and it really gives me a great perspective on skeptical history.
That's true, Richard. I've listened to your podcast, of course. I've listened to that, and it's really comforting to hear that people were skeptical even way back. It's not something that we invented or Randy invented even.
That's right.
People have always questioned.
People were skeptical even before colonizing Australia. Some people.
I'm skeptical about Australia in general, but right.
Well, I know it doesn't really exist, and everybody in Australia we're really in the south of France, but we like to tell people we're actually on the other side of the planet, but it's not true.
I thought you were holograms, no?
Yeah, I'm a hologram,
well,
but I'm not going to tell you. Yeah.
So that's Australia is over the edge of the Earth, actually, the flat Earth.
It is
behind the ice wall.
No, you are.
Yeah.
No, we are behind the ice wall that you guys. I don't know what it's like on the other part of the world, but it might be worth, no matter where you're listening to us, around the world, on the flat Earth or wherever you think you are. Why not dive back into the digitized newspaper archives of your own country? Have a look. You might be really surprised to see what skeptical investigations were going on way back in the early part of last century and before the organized skepticism movement started.
There were people trying to debunk the Fox sisters, in the mid 19th century in the US. So it's great to know, and people who were debunking witch hunters actually centuries prior to that. So it's good to know that as well as the crazy side of human nature, there are always people willing to take those ideas on.
And they organized as well, like the Society Against Quackery in the Netherlands. Yeah. It was founded in the 19th century, so it's the oldest ever organization of this sort of in the world. So yeah. So I think we are moving on to the next, but before that, I hear that Deborah has to leave. So sorry to hear that.
Sorry to go. It's been absolutely.
Do come back.
I will do. Thank you for inviting me onto this, and
thank you for being here.
Congratulations on your 250th anniversary. That's absolutely stunning.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Take care, Deborah.
Thanks for celebrating with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Hope to see you soon.
Wonderful to see you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right,
and I forget to mention.
Talk shit about her now.
What? What's going on?
I'm only kidding.
It's just Brian being Brian.
Oh.
It's nothing else. So I think I've forgot to mention something that Pontus is wearing a pretty interesting T-shirt that is Jag är skeptisk. Is it how do you say
perfect. That? Jag är skeptisk.
Does it mean that I am skeptic?
It means I am skeptical. Like that? That's what it means. Skeptical. Yes. Skeptisk.
Very nice.
Right.
Okay.
This is the VOF. Maybe I can turn around and see. There's a logo on the back. Can you see that?
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
The famous VOF
by the way,
logo.
Thanks very much for VOF to the opportunity to stream our show on the VOF
Yes,
channel.
that was me. Okay.
That was quite a last-minute
Yeah,
thing.
we should have had a plan B.
But I am wearing a very nice T-shirt as well. I don't know if you've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
It's from last
that's
year
nice.
when it was the 150th anniversary of
CFI Canada.
the periodic table. Yes, and CFI Canada. And how clever is this, CFI Canada? And I'm pretty sure that at least some of the CFI Canada people that I've become friends with in the last several years of traveling to their wonderful country every summer, they gave it to me last year. I think it was Shauna Watson who gave it to me. And Kevin Brown says that he's listening, and he keeps commenting on the chat window as well. So
Good.
I think he is listening. Thank you very
Everybody
much
should
for
do
that,
yeah.
Kevin. I told you I would be wearing
Good.
this, so
I just want to point out that I had to pay for my T-shirt.
I had to
I
travel,
want one of those
travel across the
T-shirts. I
world.
love
Yeah,
it.
I'll send you one.
Thank you. I love both the T-shirts. They're fantastic. But András, I'm jealous. I am so jealous. You get to go to Canada. I mean, I'm often in the United States, apart from this year, where we're often nowhere at the moment. But I used to live in Canada when I was a young boy. Not many people know that. So I haven't been back for many years. So I'm very jealous.
Did they deport you, Richard? What crime
They
did you
did.
commit?
Everybody who lives in Australia lives there because they were deported. You should know that, Brian.
Like violated a moose or something.
Yeah.
Well, in
Richard.
my family, it's true. I'm descended from about 13 people who were asked to leave Great Britain in ships. Get out!
Ooh.
Turns out they got out at the right time, Richard, so...
They got out the right
not
time.
bad.
All those annoying numbers, they were ruining the fun for everyone, so they just shipped you away.
Yep.
So, getting back to traveling is something that for some reason, I'm not really looking forward to it. But if things get back to normal, I might end up being on the go all the time again. But I definitely want to go back to Canada. And they said at the company that I work for as a tour guide that they might be sending me to Australia as well. So if life gets back to close to normal, I might be going your way. I will let you know if that happens.
Yeah, we'll wait. I mean, I can't wait till life gets back to normal. I really miss. It's nice we can do this. It's great. I think it's a terrific thing. But I really miss seeing a lot of my friends on the annual get-togethers, whether it's Las Vegas or New York or QED or whatever it is. That is so important. So I very much look forward to getting back to that again.
Yeah. And going on skeptical conventions, that is... we miss QED.
Yes.
All right. So, Claire, what have you got for us?
So kind of Richard did the perfect opening for my story without knowing that, but we're telepathically connected, so I just sent him the idea I wanted to talk about. I was thinking because in your email you said we should give a story about what moved us or something connected with the European Skeptics Podcast and everything. So I kind of thought back through the last 5 years, and I realized that of course, most of us who are in the skeptic movement don't really get compensated for that in any way. We do it as a hobby, and we do the best we can in our free time for our own country or our own area or region, city, whatever. And then a couple of us also try to squeeze in this kind of international work. But seriously, András, Pontus, and now Annika, you guys are doing the most when it comes to building the bridges and connecting everyone, making sure we across Europe know what's going on. And I just remember the first time I actually got to see the people behind the actions, because we all communicate online, but we're all from different parts of the world. So having that opportunity to meet up at various conferences, events, skeptic get-togethers, and actually see the people you've been communicating with and really admiring their work from afar, and kind of be inspired by them and actually see them in the flesh. They do exist. They're not holograms. But really see the people who are putting in that much work with the love for skepticism and for trying to make the world a little bit better. It's always so amazing and fills you with so much energy, and it gives you such a big kick in the butt to continue on with your own work. And I really missed that this year too, that we didn't get to see each other, and I did not you kind of didn't have to kick yourself in the butt, which is kind of difficult to do when it comes to that. And I'm just really looking forward to meeting with everyone and having that big jolt of inspiration and skeptic love that we always give each other at skeptic conferences.
That's absolutely true. It's the old expression, it recharges the batteries. And one of the criticisms that people still like to level is that, you skeptics all get together for a weekend and you all congratulate each other and you preach to the choir. And I say, yes, it's great. We can see each other. We're seeing friends. We're learning from each other. So why are people so upset that they think that we do this? It's crazy. Every social interest in life has a group they get together of like-minded people and talk about things they like. I think,
and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a cult-like thing. It's and that's what I got from several people when we started. The whole community mourned James Randi, of course. We all did, and we all did our tributes in our own ways. And but one thing that I really liked about how he was looked upon by everyone was that he was not like this guru-like figure. He was like a teacher, but I'm trying to be careful with that word as well, because all the gurus are calling themselves teachers. But he was so true, so full of love towards everyone, and yet so thorough and strict when it came to using logic and using the methods of critical thinking and skepticism, and that's very unique. And that's what elevates me every time that I get to spend time with skeptics, and especially in person. That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. No, I talking about preaching to the choir and everything. If you're a fan of of soccer, you always find people who like you. I mean, you will always find a very big group of people with whom you can share your interests, right? But if you're a skeptic, you're not going to find that many friends. Let's be honest.
That's right.
We deserve to be among friends for 1 week in a year.
Exactly. I think that's the least.
And look, on top of that, my recollections of the bar at QED on a Saturday, not a lot of conversation going on about skepticism and stuff. Not really, and also the fact that we don't sit around patting each other's backs for those entire weekends either. There's plenty of disagreement and healthy discussion going on. So in that respect, definitely not like a cult. Let's try harder, make it more.
Unless it's a cult to get together and disagree about stuff.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's our specialty.
I'll give you an example of how. So just quickly, I'll give you an example of how not like a cult it is of people agreeing with each other. Now, for many years, I was involved with the James Randi Educational Foundation's $1 million prize challenge at the Amazing Meeting. So at the end of the Amazing Meeting, on the last day, we'd set up a challenge live on stage, and somebody would be tested for the $1 million. And we did the best we could. It was a team of us. We worked very hard the whole convention to get this right. We made mistakes, of course. We got the protocol slightly wrong, or this was slightly wrong, whatever. They were usually okay. But the criticism we got immediately after from an audience of skeptics who are looking for every possible thing that we stuffed up or made errors in. And we would really get a lot of criticism afterwards. A lot of it good natures, but that's not you can't get more unlike a cult, I think, than that.
That's true. That's one thing, that, of course, when you do public appearances for the general public, you're not really that worried about how the general public will receive you. You're always worried, what will the comments be in the skeptic groups about this?
That's what friends are for, right?
Yeah.
It actually really keeps you from doing stuff. I waited years before I started my blog, because I've always had an issue with publishing something, because Pontus and Annika can tell you how much I worry about all that, and that it has to be right, it has to be good, it has to be okay, it has to be well researched, and I always end up losing the interest. And I've got, like, now I think I've got 6 or 8 different posts. And
they are very promising, we've heard, but we won't see them yet.
Yeah, but they're not ready, because I lost interest in the process of doing all the research and everything, and I lost the momentum, and that's because I wanted it to be right, I wanted it to be correct, and stand the scrutiny of all the skeptics out there.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, like when I was, for example, working on my article about the history of skepticism that went out in The Skeptic, I consulted with András, so thank you again for your help with that. But if I was like waiting, I was like thinking, okay, who's going to correct me? And of course there were corrections, because of course there were. But, you forgot to add this person, and you forgot to add this person. I was like, yeah, well, Mark already told me that the article was too long and he had to divide it in 2. So, I mean...
Actually, speaking of not being perfect skeptics, maybe I should go next, because that would sort of logically follow.
That would have been my suggestion anyway,
okay.
So yeah.
No, because I'd like to share a story that's a little bit embarrassing for me personally, but I think maybe it's a cautionary tale, and also a reminder that nobody's perfect, especially not me.
Don't worry, the rash will clean up.
No, that's another story. We agreed we shouldn't talk about that, Brian. Okay.
Okay.
No, so this is a story from before I discovered the skeptic movement. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I didn't know I was a skeptic, though I probably was in a way. I had those tendencies, but I didn't have the tools. So this is not too long ago, 2008, which actually maybe is a long time ago, but anyway. I've always been very interested in history, and also especially when new angles come up, people discover things that wasn't known before. So I came across this best-selling book as a pocket. I think it was on an airport or something, because I traveled a lot at the time. It was called 1421, The Year China Discovered America. And it was written by a guy called Gavin Menzies. I see nods. Have you heard about this? The book? No?
Yeah. I've heard about it. I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
It was fascinating at the time, I should tell you. So Gavin Menzies is a British retired ex-submarine kind of guy. I don't know exactly what the rank was, but he was in the Royal Navy, so British. And he claimed that he had discovered irrefutable proof that a Chinese fleet left China in 1421 to map out the whole world by assignment by the emperor. And he describes in the book how this was done, and later there was a change in the dynasty or whatever. So after this attempt to charter the whole world, China went back and isolated itself against the world. But there was this one fleet that went out to charter the whole world. So it was fascinating stuff. There were supposed to be maps of these adventures and also evidence around the world from the adventure that they had. And even that when Columbus went to America, 80 years later or something, or 70 years later, he claimed that he had found Asian people there. And this book claims that, yes, it's right. It was Chinese who had gotten there before him. So it was a huge bestseller. It was followed up actually by more books. One called 1434, and that explained how the Chinese had actually gone to Italy and taught Leonardo da Vinci everything they knew about. So all the drawings of all the fantastic inventions and stuff was actually Chinese, but Leonardo da Vinci had just copied them, etc. So by the second book, I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. That didn't really sound right to me, but I was still very, very fascinated about this. Chinese meeting the Pope at the time, etc. But at the time, the point is that at the time I had no skills to recognize logical fallacies, and I was so naive to believe that nobody would publish such a thing without having checked it, and it would be sincere and it would be true and it would be right. Even if a guy who writes stuff can be delusional, the publishers would have stopped it if it wasn't right. So I even bought copies of this book and handed it out to family and friends and said, have you heard about this fantastic thing? And of course it's all nonsense. And even on the jacket of the book that I still have somewhere, it says, and I quote, "In the course of researching the book 1421, he, the author, visited 120 countries, over 900 museums and libraries, and every major seaport of the late Middle Ages." Come on. Nobody does that. 120 countries? I should have smelled a rat. I should have had the red flags.
It must have been Santa.
Yeah, but I bought it. So the point is that we were all stupid in a way. And nobody can say that they're too smart to be fooled. Because you need the tools. You need to be educated and need to have the training to recognize these logical fallacies or whatnot. So I sometimes go out to schools, secondary grade, and is that the word, secondary grade? No, secondary schools. Anyway,
Secondary school or second grade? It depends.
No, not second grade. I mean students being around 16, 17, 18 or something, and talk to them about skepticism. And
secondary schools.
Yeah, all right. So I tell them I don't believe that I'm smarter than anybody else. I'm stupid enough. Well, I'm smart enough to realize.
You don't believe, you know.
I realize I need these tools to keep me from being stupid. So we need to be skeptical, but it's an acquired skill. You have to learn how to be that. And
we could coin a new phrase. You're smart enough to know how stupid
exactly.
you are.
Yes, that's it.
That could be the Pontus
coined, yeah.
Yes. That's my next T-shirt. That's my next T-shirt. And especially in this case, going back to this book, this nonsense book, is that it hit me right in my sweet spot, where I wanted to learn something that nobody else knew. It would turn around, especially about history, it would be turn around everything we knew about everything, and that was very, very appealing to me. So that's why I fell for it. So, yeah.
No, my colleague, actually, the reason I know this book was because my colleague was using that book as his main argument that these kinds of issues are much more dangerous than homeopathy or like the issues that we can clearly debunk. These kind of books or ideas, arguments, which seem so real on the first glance, are much more insidious than the easily debunked things. And he believes that as skeptics, we should concentrate more on debunking these kind of commonly accepted things that actually, when you look at them, are not true.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Of course, a couple of years later, this same author published a book called The Lost Empire of Atlantis, and maybe I wouldn't have fallen for that as easily.
All right, so moving on to Annika's story. So what have you got for us?
Yeah, so didn't you want to say something first?
Apparently not.
Okay, then I'll just tell you my story. So, in 2012, which is not, of course, in the 5 years, but it's like the introduction of the story, a book called Die Homöopathie-Lüge, The Lie of Homeopathy, was published and was written by Christian Wehmeyer and Nicole Heisman. And it caught the attention of someone who probably all of us have heard of. She read the book. She got really angry about it. I'll tell you who it was later. She decided to write a book in defense of homeopathy, being a homeopathic doctor herself. So she started reading studies and researched homeopathy and discovered that her work was actually not built on scientific evidence. Do you already know who I'm talking about?
I do.
I do.
So, Natalie Grams published her book Homeopathy Reconsidered in 2015, and that's where the 5 years tie in. And her whole life basically turned around in that regard. She was the co-founder of the Informationsnetzwerk Homöopathie, or Information Network Homeopathy. She was in several TV shows. She's still pretty famous in Germany. There were also, of course, downsides to that. She got threatened to be sued. She got persecuted by homeopaths or like people who believe in homeopathy. She said there's no evidence for the effectiveness of homeopathy beyond the placebo effect, and got threatened to be sued in that regard. She was the head of the Information Network Homeopathy for 5 years, so pretty much the whole time of this podcast. Now Jutta Hübner is the head, but this story just shows how massively important it is to look beyond one's own biases, and it also shows, and that's why I also wanted to tell you this story, how brave someone like Natalie Grams is, because she looked at her own biases and she confronted herself with it. And to give this whole thing a personal angle, which also has to do with the EU, funnily enough, someone came to Germany about maybe 4 to 5 years ago on EU science funding. And he was a mutual friend, or like we met through a mutual friend. And we actually had a very interesting conversation about how bollocks homeopathy and other alternative treatments are. And that was the moment we actually were like, you're pretty cool. And so the story, the personal story in that regards ends with, we're married now. We're expecting.
Scotty!
And so, yes, that's how Scotty and I met. And so pretty much through alternative medicine. So it was effective in that regard.
It works.
Through skepticism, that is.
Yeah.
Just goes that Scott didn't give you a homeopathic dose, Annika.
So that's my story.
So du bist schwanger, ja?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
What did you say?
Thank you. Oh, he just insulted my whole family.
No, so what was it? What was it?
He asked if I was pregnant.
Okay.
Before we came live, we were talking about making a list of skeptic babies. That means babies that were born after the person became a skeptic. So if you have a skeptic baby, I'm sure András and Pontus and Annika would really love if you left it, in the comments, and we can put together an awesome skeptic baby list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Or send us an email.
Right, because we like to eat them.
Yeah, they're especially good for satanic rites.
Or send them to the Croatian. That was for vampires. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is how misinformation sets in, and it sits in the back of your mind, and it's impossible to get rid of it. So this is how it works. Okay, very nice. So that's a lovely story, and it's great that you have basically met through skepticism, through your being a skeptic, and that's amazing. I wonder how many couples there are who have
Too
met
few.
On skeptical occasions. Yeah, and one of the reasons might be that there are always two few women in the skeptic movement.
That's a very that's your perspective, András.
No. I'm not talking about. No, I know. I'm not talking about my loss.
It sounds like you're advertising.
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
András.
It may work for my call,
No,
but I'm not
it's
sure
just-
it works for
it's just-
everyone.
Pinter on Tinder.
If you look through this, No, if you look through the skeptical movement, there are certain fields where there are women, and I think in Germany there is quite a good balance, gender balance in the movement. But elsewhere, you kind of got the feeling that it's mostly men, and I'm so happy that on this panel today, I mean, not currently, but earlier, while we had everyone on, we had a 50-50 gender distribution, which is quite good. And I'm very happy about that. And that thank you very much for allowing me to tell you that.
We couldn't stop you, could we?
Could you imagine a skeptical Tinder and it says, "What's your star sign?" Oops, no, sorry.
That would be hilarious, though. I think we should like start an app like that, just for conferences.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wonder how popular it would be. But talking about skeptical conventions and meeting skeptics, I'd like to... Oh, Susan says that Valkyria and Ryan Harding met and married because they were both GSOW editors. So GSOW being Guerrilla Skepticism Wikipedia. And that's right. I actually knew that. Valkyria Nubert and Ryan Harding, they live in the UK.
There you go.
That's right.
Of skeptic magazine in the style of like a gossip magazine, and just like
Yes,
photos of couples and the babies and everything like that.
that would be so cool.
But
I think
I've given...
Susan Gerbeck's watching us at the moment. Hello, big shout out to Susan Gerbeck and all your fabulous editors around the world at Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. It's an amazing job they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, my story is about an adventure that we went on with Susan, Mark, and Mark Edward, and Lubomir Baburov from Bulgaria. And after the 2017 European Skeptics Congress, we went on quite a tour. We started in Germany, where we stopped at least 3 or 4 places. And one of them was Göttingen, and where the local skeptics took us in, and they organized a very nice event for us. And Rüdiger, who I don't know if he's listening, but I hope he still listens to the show. He was our host, and he was very lovely. And then we moved on. We went to Frankfurt as well, where we met Annika and Scotty in person. That was lovely. We went to the museum, of Natural History as well, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we went to Rostorf, where we saw the headquarters of GWP,
and
the German Skeptical Movement.
And the chair, yeah.
And,
exactly.
and the chair that we mentioned earlier. The chair. And we met up with Martin Mana, who runs the show there for GWP. And we actually visited the control center of the European Space Agency as well, thanks to Lubo, who organized that visit. Right before we went on to meet up with Natalie Grams, the person you mentioned, and she was so lovely, and she showed us around. Was it Heidelberg? Is that
probably? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Then we had an event in Switzerland where Marko Kovic and the gang organized an event for us, a very nice and lovely chat with a talk and panel discussion. And I think among the last stops was Cesena in Italy, where there was the European CICAP Fest going on. For CICAP is being the Italian skeptical organization, and James Randi was there as well, so we basically followed him from all the way from the Czech Republic and Poland, where he attended the European Skeptics Congress as well. So, wow, that was great. That was lovely. And then we moved on. We went up to meet local skeptics in Ljubljana in Slovenia. And Susan, at the end, gave a talk at an event organized by the Hungarian Skeptics. So she did quite a tour, and she called it the About Time Tour. And that was about time we did that. Yeah, and she says that Mark and her tour actually started in Oslo, so they went.
Right,
to
they stopped
Nordic
by
countries.
here in Sweden as well on their way down too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Before the European Skeptics Congress. So that was quite a tour, and that is among the loveliest memories that I've had in the last 5 years of my skeptical activism. That was quite a tour. I drove about 3,500 kilometers across the continent. So that was quite a bit.
That's just
riding
going
there
to
as well.
the nearest shopping mall in Australia, right?
In Australia, right?
That's right. It is. It's down the corner. That's right.
Yeah,
I'd love to
actually
do
amazed.
I say I'd love to do a tour with Susan, travel through countries and speak, but I don't think I could keep up with her. I just don't think I could do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
Susan
difficult,
and
but I was the one responsible for organizing the tour. So she basically did what I said we were doing. So she behaved quite well.
I was just
She
going to
was
say, like Susan and Mark were on tour again. Sort of. Let me see. Well, let me tell you exactly when. It was the weekend of the 20th of April last year, and they came to Glasgow, and I didn't get to meet them because I was busy with the birth of the Skepti baby that you guys saw earlier on.
Yeah, yeah.
It was certainly nice to have them in town and talking at the Glasgow Skeptics, but just a shame I never actually got to see that. But I had my hands full at the time. But yeah, she's quite a traveller.
Yeah, she is. And
I
hope when
this-
she can, she comes back to Europe. All right. I think it's almost time for us to wrap up this show. But since Annika still has a couple of questions for us,
More quiz.
I think we should go on and do
We
that.
should put Richard to
I
the
don't know,
test now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So far, Brian is leading.
yeah, I know, but Brian was mostly copying Deborah.
So now you're at a
He's gonna be
disadvantage.
mostly copying
Luck
you
now,
so-
then.
I think you just copied the right people because, like, when you copied Claire on the right questions and then Deborah on the right questions. So you just have more now.
That's a good skill to have.
Richard can
Who
find
to
us
copy?
before.
Yeah.
Okay, so then welcome to round 2.
Ta-da.
And
How do you say it in German?
willkommen zu Runde 2.
Runde 2.
I love
Runde
listening to that.
So, sixth question. In 2014, UK psychic Sally Morgan embarrassed herself when she...
Multiple times, I think, before having real... Okay.
Well, also, but in particular because A, she contacted the spirit of a lady in the audience who was alive and well. B, started talking in tongues, which an audience member noted was actually just Hungarian. Hi, Jelena. Or...
Hello, Jelena. Welcome back.
Oh,
Welcome back.
good.
Or
I came to say goodbye. No, but I also want to just.
You
like,
wanted the
participate
points
in
of the
quiz.
last questions
Very
here.
good,
Yes,
very good.
good. Go on, play.
Or C, accidentally emailed her cold reading notes to all conference attendees. What do you think?
A.
Hey,
I think I remember this as well, yeah. A.
So that was
Yes,
Claire,
yeah.
right? And who else said A?
Everybody, I think, so far.
Yeah,
Everybody?
I think it's A. I'm not sure, but I think it's A.
yeah, it absolutely was A, and it was
A, yeah.
skeptical YouTube hero Miles Power that was in the audience and wrote about this at the time.
Okay. So should I just put everybody down to A?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, please.
Okay. And the right answer was A.
Woo.
Okay.
Okay. But
7. The Polish
Jamie?
city Katowice is, or however it's pronounced, I'm sorry, is famous for having what type of school? A, school of the psychically gifted. B, college for superhuman powers. Or C, school of exorcism.
ooh, interesting. I have a hunch, but I'm not going to say.
I'm going to go.
You will
C.
have to eventually.
Yeah, but I'm going to let you first. I don't want to give you a hint.
Holy jeez. I'm gonna say B because it just sounds too funny. B.
How to
It's got to be C for me.
see? Yeah, I'm going with C as well. I mean, exorcism is big in Poland.
It's big.
Yes.
Yeah.
A school, that would be funny. A school for exorcism. Sit down, students. Here's the board. Okay.
Okay. Like there's a practical test. Here we have somebody who is really, and you have to, and we take the time now, starting the clock now, and yeah.
So,
Okay,
far,
so-
yeah, who else wants to pick something? András, you didn't pick yet?
C for me,
C.
please. Yeah.
And András picks it too. And Jelena? Oh, you already picked C.
C, please.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, and it was the School of Exorcism, yes.
It should be the school of superhuman power.
But that means it's free, so we can start one. That's good.
Well, I think it's only for Catholics.
Well, I can. I mean,
I am a Catholic. I am a Catholic. I'm
oh,
baptized.
good for you.
There you go.
Okay.
Catholics and demons.
Bless you, my child.
The next question, I would say.
Oh,
Thank you, my sister. Oh, mother. Oh, what?
Which European skeptic and author wrote the book Final Seance in 2001, which details the strange friendship between Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? A.
know
Edward
that.
Ernst, B. Massimo Polidoro, or C. Simon
good
Singh?
one.
B for me, please.
B for me,
B for-
please.
B for me too.
I'm also going to say B because Massimo has written about like 8.
He writes one a week, doesn't he? Yeah,
That's right.
it must be him. Okay, I'm going B as well. I was going to go C just to be
Massimo,
different,
yeah.
but B.
Okay, I just read everyone, right?
B.
Okay.
Well, I chose B
Pontus
because he's
was
such a nice guy.
Lovely guy. And Pontus
reason
loves
also,
to
yes.
pronounce his name.
What?
And the right answer was, of course, B. Yes.
So Pontus, please pronounce his name.
Which
I
one?
love how you say
Arthur
it.
Conan Doyle.
B. No. The answer, please.
Okay, Massimo Polidoro.
Oh, that's right.
Bellissimo.
Scusi. Okay.
I wonder if earlier on Enrico Zabeo, the host of CICAP, Radio CICAP, was listening earlier. I wonder if he's still listening. Let us know if you're happy with the pronunciation, Enrico.
Okay, so second to last question. Nostradamus, a well-known French fortune teller and occultist, wrote his prophecies in which style to try and avoid arrest by inquisitors? A. Jet trains, B. Quatrains, or C. Steam trains?
Come on, Annika.
Good one.
Good teacher.
I'm gonna go with A. 3 trains.
I'm gonna go with
going to
B.
go-
I think B is good as well. I think 4 is better if you want to do. I don't know. I'm just going to say B.
Well, he's got an extra train. Yeah, very good.
That's right.
Exactly.
And I'm
I'm
going to
going
go for C. I'm going to go for C just for fun.
Well,
You
I don't think that steam trains is the right track. So I'm going to go with B.
Ba-boom.
Okay. Yeah, and the right answer was quatrains.
Woohoo!
Now we come to the last and most hardest
Most hardest.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
The
most hardest,
absolute master question.
Okay.
So we probably all know who appeared on the first episode of TheESP, which was Gabor Hrashko. Please note the Hungarian naming here, András.
Rashko Gabor. That's right.
Very nice, and I really appreciate how you paid attention to the accents on the letters. Yeah, very nice, very nicely done.
Now I want to know from you, who appeared in episode 8? Was it A, Michael Marshall, B, Jay Novella, or C, Diana Barbosa?
Oh, that's obscure.
So,
Don't you know your ESP history,
Fine.
Richard? What?
That's right, Jelena.
Every episode and every guest.
Episode by number and guest.
That's why it's a master question. That's why it's
Imagine the same question for guys from the Skeptics Guide to the Universe. I mean, how many episodes they
A
had?
million. Right. The Skeptic Zone has a few as well, I guess. How many is it now? 600 and what?
633
Woohoo.
will be the next one.
That is
so,
insane.
Richard, are you doing
Well
anything
done, well
special
done.
for 666?
Oh, 666. That'll be coming up. Yeah. I'll have to think of something special for
You
that.
must do. You must do devil theme.
You should do that.
I'll go to
Invite
the
Deborah Hyde.
exorcism school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Get somebody
school,
on
yeah.
the School of Exorcism.
You have
With
to.
Deborah Hyde.
You have to.
So,
I'm going to say, for this one, I'm going to say Michael Marshall.
yeah, so in the same way that if you're guessing about authors, then Massimo Polidoro is a good guess. Michael Marshall is the podcast equivalent. He's pretty much on every podcast.
Every week.
Always, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes, that's right.
So, yeah,
And
I'll
he's
go for
the only
Marshall
one
then.
that you cannot listen to at 1.5 times speed, because then it's incomprehensible. Usually, that's how I usually listen to podcasts, and it sounds weird when I listen to them at normal speed. But I cannot listen to Mars speaking.
I'll
at
speak
that
slower
speed.
next
It's just
time. Hello.
Has everybody gone?
No, Pontus you didn't pick yet, András didn't pick, and Claire didn't.
I would say B.
B?
Yeah, it is B. I was so starstruck when he visited Sweden at the time, and I cornered him and I forced him to go into a Skeptics in the pub with us, and I put him on a stage and interviewed him. It was just me doing that. So yes, it is B.
This is how you do it, by the way, Pontus. FYI, if you want to ever get a star on the show, corner them.
Right.
Don't give them a chance.
Yeah, we've done all our interviews that way.
I think, Claire, do you still want to pick, although there was already an answer
I'm
to
just waiting for it to calm down, so I'm going to go with the Brian method and go with B.
Oh, I thought you had already guessed, so I'm sorry if I spoiled it.
You pretty much just gave Claire a point. It's okay. Because it was, Jay Novella. So, let me just quickly count the points while you guys do something.
I demand a recount.
Don't worry about Annika. Don't worry about me. I'm not going to be part of the
press conference outside Four Seasons Landscaping. If there's anything that goes wrong here.
Well, while you do that, Annika, I'm going to take your podcast over for a minute. Folks, I'm live with the European Skeptics Podcast. They're celebrating a big milestone. Pontus, András, and Annika, and a group of sort of people from around the world have joined in to celebrate this. Congratulations, everybody.
Ooh, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you so
And
much,
Skeptic
Richard.
Zone listeners,
And thanks for joining us.
Richard was ejected from Canada as a child for moose abuse. I don't know if that's going to affect your listenership, Richard.
I'm sorry. Yeah, all those people in Canada. I used to live there, but I was asked to leave the country when I was very young. No, but this is a really great occasion because I know how hard it is to keep a podcast going week after week after week or after week. And the European Skeptics Podcast, ESP. I love that. The way you've cleverly said that. ESP, the really ESP experience, is certainly on my weekly listen list, if I can put it that way. And it's a testament to the hard work that you put in every week.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that, and it's especially very nice coming from you, whose work we really admire and we do value a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So there you are, folks. I know I run ads, promotions for the ESP quite regularly on the show, and I'm begging you to send me a new one. Folks over there at your podcast, please do that. But for now, again, my warm congratulations for reaching that milestone. And now back to the Skeptic Zone. Thank you. I'll stop recording. That'll be on the next episode.
Great.
Very smooth.
Pro. I'm glad we brought a pro on for this at some point. Well done.
Wow.
So, we got the winners now. And the winners will receive a 10-second song aired on the ESP next episode, written and performed by an ESP member, me, to honor their terrific knowledge.
Ooh.
And the winners are a shared first place for Brian and Pontus and second place for Claire.
Well done.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Brian, that means it's fist fights to get to see who is really the winner, right?
We'll have a virtual arm wrestle after the
A
show.
virtual arm wrestle. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Whoever's got the bigger bandwidth will...
I have. You haven't seen my bandwidth.
Okay. Annika, thank you so much for preparing this.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you,
There are
Annika.
sources.
That was
This was
fun.
great.
Thank you. I mean, there are sources. We will put them in the show notes for people who are interested to want to learn more about the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today, but I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
Really?
It's been going on for a while. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much for bearing with us for this long and taking part in our celebrations and sending your comments and just being here. Thank you so much. And this has been the 250th episode of the European Skeptics Podcast. Thank you very much. And until next week.
Bye-bye.
Paka
Hej
paka!
då!
Get up there!
Thank you.
Happy
So,
birthday,
see ya.
ESP.
This has been your ESP experience. The show is produced and recorded by TheESP.eu. Join us again next time, but until then, please send your feedback, comments or death threats to info@theesp.eu. We would also love to hear your ideas and suggestions regarding future episodes, as well as news from your country of residence that might interest others across the continent. If you have a local event or organization to promote, please don't hesitate to let us know, as we are more than happy to help. All music in the program was written and performed by Keisha J. Gray and George Schwab and is used with their permission. Please check out our webpage at www.theesp.eu, follow us on Twitter at espodcast_EU, and like us on Facebook.
I don't know how you can believe